Hello, good day everyone. And today we will be discussing income tax for individuals. This lecture is primarily geared towards accountancy, so para siya sa mga accounting students. But of course, practitioners and law students can also listen to this lecture and learn the basic principles of income tax for individuals. The difference in my lectures for law students and accountancy students is that for law students, I focus more on the principles. Whereas for accountancy students, medyo meron siyang computations. Okay? So, mamaya we will see or we will show how income taxes are computed for certain kinds of individuals. And as reference, no, as you can see here, I am using the book Income Taxation by Sir Enrico D. Tabag and Earl Jimson Garcia. So ito yung prescribed textbook ko sa mga accountancy students who are taking up income tax. All right? So now we're on to chapter 2 and we will discuss income tax for individuals. Okay? So for income tax on individuals, let's start with definition. Ano ba yung individuals? Individual taxpayers are natural persons with income derived from within the territorial jurisdiction of a taxing authority. So sa Philippines, may dalawang kinds of persons. One that we call natural persons and the other one, juridical. No? So when we say natural persons, the term generally refers to human beings tayo, mga tao, yung mga ipinanganak. We are natural persons. Whereas yung term na juridical persons, it refers to entities created by law or by operation of law that are given a personality. So under sa law, ang mga may juridical personality are partnerships and corporations. These entities, partnerships and corporations, they have a personality separate and distinct from those of partners and the stockholders comprising the company. And in fact, alam natin na yung mga partnership tsaka yung mga corporation, they can own property, they have rights, they have obligations. Wala silang feelings. But yung let's say sa property, it can be recorded under the name of the corporation. Okay? So, when it comes to taxing individuals, okay, when it comes to income tax for individuals, the term individuals is actually not limited to natural persons. Under Section 22 of the Tax Code, di ba, a term person means an individual, a trust, an estate, or a corporation. Pero doon sa Section 22B, merong definition ng corporation which does not include trust and estate. So what this means is that the income taxation for individuals can also be applicable or is also applicable to estate and trusts. They are taxed in the same way as natural persons. In fact, yung income tax return ng individuals which is 1701, BIR form 1701, makikita nyo sa title niya na it also applies to estates and trusts. Okay? All right. So now we go to classification of taxpayers according to EOPT. As you can see dito sa Word document before you, before the Ease of Paying Taxes Act, which became effective this year, 2024, the general classification of taxpayers is actually under Section 23 of the Tax Code. However, with the passage of Ease of Paying Taxes Act, nagkaroon ng specific classification of taxpayers under Section 21. And this is micro, small, medium, and large. So sabi dito, Section 21, no? For purposes of responsive tax administration, ang magiging classification ng taxpayers ay micro, small, medium, and large. If you look at page 116 of the income taxation book, may explanation dito, how do we determine or how would we know kung ano yung classification ng taxpayer? How would you know kung micro, small, medium, or large ka? Look, under the tax code as amended by EOPT, ang taxpayers are classified based on their gross sales according to benta. When we say gross sales, it shall refer to total sales revenue during the taxable year, excluding VAT and excluding deductions. Walang bawas, except for VAT. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ang classification is based on benta. It doesn't matter kahit let's say nagbenta ka or your total sales for the year is 1 billion pesos and your cost and or your expenses is at 1.5 billion. So, can you say na actually lugi pa nga ako ng 500 million eh. So, dapat dun lang ako sa micro. No, the taxpayer will still be classified as a large taxpayer, 'di ba? Kasi pumalo na siya ng 1 billion in sales. It doesn't matter kahit lugi yung company. What matters is the gross sales for purposes of determining the classification. So let's look at this one. Kung micro taxpayer ka, your gross sales is less than 3 million pesos. So it's by volume of sales. So less than 3 million, micro ka. If you are a small taxpayer, your gross sales is 3 million pesos to less than 20 million pesos. If you are a medium taxpayer, your gross sales is 20 million pesos to less than 1 billion pesos. So hanggang 999,000 million, 999,999, na? And then if you're a large taxpayer, your gross sales is at 1 billion pesos and above. So once tumuntong ng 1 billion ang gross sales, it will be classified or the taxpayer will now be classified as a large taxpayer. Again, doesn't matter kahit lugi yung kumpanya. What matters is yung gross sales niya is 1 billion pesos and above. Right? What's the importance of grouping or classifying taxpayers for ease of administration? No? For small and micro taxpayers, actually meron silang mga benefit such as reduced penalties on interest, surcharge, and compromise. Tapos yung income tax returns nila will only be reduced to just 2 pages. Kasi before may mga ITRs no na ang hahaba. And in fact, under the train law, naging 4 pages na lang ang maximum na ITRs. But with the passage of the EOPT, magiging 2 pages na lang ang income tax returns ng micro and small taxpayers. Right? So let's go back to the classification of taxpayers under Section 23. So under Section 23, ang taxpayers are classified based on their citizenship, their residency, and the situs of their income. When we say citizenship, we're referring to either Filipinos or aliens. Yun talaga yung term na ginamit sa tax code. When we're referring to residency, ang ibig sabihin nun, they are either residents or non-residents. And kung situs, it depends on whether their income is earned from within the Philippines or earned from outside the Philippines. So to emphasize or to explain more on these things, please watch my video on this channel also, Tax Review 2024, Income Taxes Part 1. Now, this lecture or this video lecture explains ano-ano yung mga klase ng taxpayers under Section 23 as well as may mga situations na ini-explain paano ba malalaman kung within or without yan and how they are taxed. No? So, for the next few parts, especially when it comes to itong ang taxpayers, dito sa video na ito, medyo bibilisan lang natin. Kasi, again, I refer you to this video on income taxes part 1. All right. So, let's now go to Citizens of the Philippines on page 60 of the book. So, saan natin makikita ang definitions ng citizens of the Philippines? How would you know if you are a citizen or not? Actually, this is found in Section 1, Article 4 of the Philippine Constitution. As you can see on page 60 of the book, ang mga considered citizens, no? those who are citizens of the Philippines at the time of the adoption of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. And the time of the effectivity of the Philippine Constitution or the date is February 2, 1987. Kasi yun yung time na nagkaroon ng plebiscite regarding the effectivity of the Constitution. Next, those whose fathers or, take note ha, fathers or mothers are citizens of the Philippines. Hindi necessary na dapat both parents Filipino. Either father or mother, Filipino citizen, the child is also considered a citizen of the Philippines. No? Number three, those born before January 17, 1973, of Filipino mothers, no, who elect Philippine citizenship upon reaching the age of majority. So pag nag-18 sila, pinili nila maging Filipino, then they are considered citizens of the Philippines. And last, those who are naturalized in accordance with law. So diyan makikita ang definition ng citizens nasa Constitution. Okay? Next, non-resident citizens of the Philippines. So, kung ikaw ay, well, under the tax code, no, ang may definition ay ang non-resident. So, presumably, kung ikaw ay citizen at ikaw ay hindi non-resident, then you are considered a resident citizen of the Philippines. The definition for non-resident citizens is actually found under Section 22E of the tax code. As you will see doon sa isang video, no, yung income tax part 1, one thing I emphasize when it comes to non-resident citizens is the fact that most people have this misconception that non-resident or non-residents or the residency depends mainly on the length of stay in the Philippines, when in fact, it is not. Now, actually, there are four classifications or four enumerations under non-resident citizens of the Philippines. And out of those four, three are based on the intention of the parties. And only one, or intention of the taxpayers, and only one is based on the length of stay. Okay? So, please check out itong lecture on income tax part 1. So, you will see yung apat na klase ng non-resident citizens of the Philippines. Okay? All right, next. Overseas contract workers. As you can see, hindi magkapareho ang non-resident citizens of the Philippines at ang overseas contract workers. Because had they been the same, edi sana pinag-isa na lang ng tax code yung definition sa kanila, right? Pero magkaiba sila. Again, non-resident citizens depend on intention rather than length of stay. Pero dun sa isang criteria na based on length of stay, this tells us that resident citizens who are required by their, sorry, citizens, hindi non-resident citizens, citizens who are required by their employment to stay abroad for the most part of the year, okay, are considered non-resident citizens. Ibig sabihin, kung 183 days or more silang nasa abroad para mag-work, they are considered non-resident citizens. Pero kung 183 days or more silang nasa Pilipinas, then they are considered as resident. Okay? Ang overseas contract workers, on the other hand, is not based on length of stay. Saan siya based? To be considered an OCW or overseas Filipino worker, you need to be employed abroad. It physically requires you to be there, okay? And your salaries and wages are paid by an employer abroad, okay? And are not borne by entities or persons in the Philippines. Ibig sabihin, yung cost ng employment mo abroad, it is not charged back to the Philippines. Also, OCWs must be registered with the POEA. Na kailangan registered siya with the POEA and with a valid overseas employment certificate. Okay? Whereas non-residents, unang-una hindi kailangan na mag-register with the POEA. Hindi rin required na dapat ang employer ay nasa abroad. It's possible that this person was just seconded. By seconded, we mean na employed siya ng isang Philippine company, pero inassign lang siya abroad. O dito ka muna i-assign natin sa New York office, 'di ba? Pero yung overseas contract worker, required na ang employer niya nasa abroad talaga. Alright, so magkaiba yon, ha? Next, yung resident citizens of the Philippines. Again, kung hindi ka ah kung hindi ka non-resident citizen, then you are considered a resident citizen of the Philippines. Okay? Next, an alien in our tax code is one who is a foreign citizen, who is not qualified or has not acquired yet a Philippine citizenship by birth or by naturalization. So basically, citizen siya ng ibang bansa. Okay? There are two kinds of aliens. We have resident aliens and we have non-resident aliens. For resident alien, this is an individual whose residence is within the Philippines and who is not a citizen thereof. Kung non-resident alien naman, this is an individual whose residence is not in the Philippines and who is not a citizen thereof. No? Take note guys, sa ating tax code may dalawang klase ng non-resident alien. Okay? So, ang non-resident alien, pwede siyang maging aliens who stayed in the Philippines for an aggregate period of more than 180 days. So, guys ha, when it comes to aliens, ang threshold days, 180. Pero yung sa non-resident citizen, 183. Magkaiba talaga siya. Okay? So, if the alien stays in the Philippines for a period of more than 180 days, considered siya as non-resident alien engaged in trade or business. But if hindi na-meet itong 180-day threshold, then this alien is considered as a non-resident alien not engaged in trade or business. At magkaiba ang taxation nila. Okay? A non-resident alien engaged in trade or business is taxable as an ordinary resident alien also. So, para rin siyang citizen. Whereas, ang non-resident alien not engaged in trade or business is subject to 25% income tax based on gross income. So, magkaiba. Mahalaga yung 180-day threshold. Okay? So for summary of the tax effect, di ba, we have already discussed residency and citizenship. Now we go to situs. So you will also see this in the income tax lecture na nirefer ko dito kanina. Okay? So ano yung mga taxability nila? Look, a citizen who is a resident is taxable on income from within and without. Meaning, this person is taxable on all income wherever it is source. So, kung ikaw ay resident citizen, kahit pumunta ka ng US, kumita ka doon, that is still taxable within the Philippines. But look, for resident aliens, non-residents, whether citizens or aliens, and for overseas contract workers, they are taxable only on income from within. That's why it's important that we know the classification of the taxpayer because this will affect what will be included in the taxable income and what will be excluded. Okay? So next, dito na tayo sa applicable taxes and tax rates. So what are the applicable taxes and tax rates when it comes to income taxation of individual taxpayers? Generally, there are three types of income tax. Number one is the basic income tax or what we call the regular tax. Second is the final withholding tax on certain passive incomes. And third is capital gains tax on sale of certain capital assets. So how do we make sense of this? 'Di ba you have the income subject to basic or regular tax. You have subject to final withholding tax and subject to capital gains tax. Guys, take note, the items that are subject to final withholding tax and subject to capital gains tax are very specific. Ibig sabihin, may listahan lang ng ano ang subject sa final withholding at ano ang subject sa capital gains tax. Later, we will discuss this in more detail. Ibig sabihin, if it is an income item which is not subject to either final withholding or capital gains, automatically subject na yan sa basic income tax or what we call the regular tax. Alright? So, yung source of income, okay, for income tax purposes, as what we have mentioned earlier, sabi natin mahalaga na alam natin yung source ng income. No? Take note guys, in the current version of the tax code, we have to know the types of income. So ano ba yung mga klase ng income when it comes to individual taxation? Usually, meron ding three types of income. Guys, we are still classifying income ha. Hindi pa natin sinasabi kung taxable siya or not. We are just enumerating the kinds of income that are possibly earned by the taxpayer. Alright? So first, no, type of income, we have the ordinary or regular income. What is this one? Ordinary or regular income refers to income such as, example, compensation, no? Yung sweldo ng tao. Business income, so pag may negosyo ka, meron kang laundromat, sari-sari store, meron kang car wash, 'di ba? Yan yung mga business income or income from practice of profession. Meaning, the person is exercising a profession, no? Lawyer siya, engineer, accountant, or maybe a photographer, 'di ba? Professional photographer. Yan yung mga kumikita ng income from the practice of a profession. Okay? The next kind of income is passive income. What is this one? Passive incomes are generally subject to final withholding taxes. But again, take note, like what I mentioned earlier, there is a specific enumeration of passive incomes that are subject to final withholding taxes. Kung wala yan sa enumeration, then that is considered an ordinary or regular income. Because there is a specific enumeration of what income items or what passive incomes are subject to final withholding taxes, nakasulat din yung specific na rate ng final withholding tax na applicable sa kanila. So, yun ang mas susundin. Alright? And the third kind of income would be the capital gains tax. Okay? Take note, itong capital gains tax sa Philippines, we only have two kinds, no? For capital gains, number one is the capital gains from sale of shares of stock of a domestic corporation not traded in the local stock exchange. So, yung mga uh, shares of stock ng hindi publicly listed corporation, pag binenta ito ng shareholder, that is subject to a capital gains tax. Okay? The second kind of capital gains in the Philippines would be capital gains from sale of real property in the Philippines. Guys, take note, iba ang taxation kung ang nag-earn ng capital gains ay individual versus corporation, which we will discuss in another video. Okay? But first, let's define what is a real property in the Philippines. When we say real property, these are the kinds of real property that are included in Article 215 of the New Civil Code. Pero ang pinaka-basic or pinaka-common na examples ng real property in the Philippines are of course land, no, lupa. Second would be buildings or structures or improvements that are fixed doon sa lupa, no? So building, bahay, those are real property. And the third most common kind of real property in the Philippines are machineries and equipment that are bolted to the ground. Kailangan naka-fix talaga siya sa ground, no? So like for example, minsan nakikita nyo sa mga malalaking subdivision, may mga water tank na sobrang laki. Yun, hindi mo siya mamumove, 'di ba? Yan ay considered as real property. So, Take note na when we say real property ha, hindi lang siya basta lupa. It can be land, buildings, or machinery and equipment. So again, the three kinds of income would be the ordinary income, income or passive income subject to final withholding tax, and third would be the capital gains na subject naman sa capital gains tax. Again, the easiest way to understand it is kung hindi siya subject sa final withholding tax, hindi siya passive income na subject sa FWT, or hindi siya capital gains na subject sa CGT, then it is classified as ordinary income. Okay? Next, we go to graduated rates beginning 2023. Now, actually, if you look at the table in section 24, of the train law which amended the tax code, okay, makita nyo meron diyang dalawang table. One with a rate which was applicable in 2018 to 2022. But now, of course, it's 2024, di ba? So we will apply the rates applicable to 2023 onwards. Okay, so dito na tayo titingin. Alright? So this is how we compute the taxes for, generally, this is how we compute the taxes for regular income of individuals. Well, individuals, estates, and trusts, no? So as you can see, how do we use this? Meron siyang income bracket. Natitignan natin if the income will fall under this bracket. So you have not over 250,000, you have over 250,000 but not over 400,000, then over 400,000 but not over 800,000, then 800,000 to 2 million, 2 million to 8 million, and then finally you have over 8 million pesos. Dito naman yung way ng pagko-compute. Alright? So, makikita nyo merong rate. And this is why it's called progressive system. Kasi tingnan nyo yung rate na applicable. It's 0, 15, 20, 25, 30, and then finally 35. So, kaya siya progressive kasi as the income increases, tumataas din yung rate ng tax na applicable. Okay? So, let's go to illustration 5. Sorry, illustration 5 on page 69. Let's explain the computation. Okay? So look, this person is a purely compensation earner, 'di ba? Number one, determine the amount of income tax due assuming the taxable compensation income for 2024 is 240,000 pesos. So anong gagawin natin? Tignan natin dito yung sa brackets saan papasok yung 240,000 pesos. So dahil 240,000, dito siya papasok sa 250, 'di ba? So look, ano ang magiging tax niya? Zero, no? So the income earner or the compensation earner is exempt kasi nga zero yung magiging tax niya. Okay? Number two, determine the income assuming the income tax due, assuming the taxable compensation income for 2024 is 300,000 pesos. So kung 300,000, again, tingin dito. So saan siya papasok? Dito sa second bracket, no? Kasi lumampas siya ng 250 pero hindi lumampas ng 400, yung 300,000 niya. So what is the tax due? Okay? Look, sa first 250, zero. So 300,000 minus 250,000, may natitira pang 50,000. And look, anong mangyayari dun sa 50,000 na excess? Subject siya sa 15%. So, ibig sabihin, 50,000 pesos the excess times 15% equals 7,500. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ang babayaran ni income earner or ni compensation earner earning 300,000 pesos is 7,500 pesos. Okay? Next, ito namang number 3. Determine the income tax due, assuming the net taxable compensation income is 1.85 million. So medyo mataas. 1.85 million. So, paano natin siya kukumputin? So, 1.85 million, dito siya sa fourth bracket papasok. Over 800,000 but not over 2 million pesos. 1.85 di ba? So, ibig sabihin, 102,500 plus 25% of the excess over 800,000 pesos. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, 1.85 million less 800,000 pesos times 25% equals 262,500. Dadagdagan mo pa nitong 102,500. Ibig sabihin, the total tax due of this person earning 1.85 million is 365,000 pesos. Okay? Okay? So, now, no, hindi na natin i-discuss yung graduated tax rate from 2018 to 2022 kasi tapos naman na siya, hindi na siya applicable. But if ever you encounter no clients no or taxpayers na nagpapakompute ng income tax for these years 2018 to 2022, then you must use this column in the middle. Kasi yan yung applicable rate doon sa income na kinita nila during those years. Okay? So we're done illustrating the computation of the basic income tax due. Now we move on to self-employed business owners and professionals. How do we classify them or how do we define them? For self-employed, this is defined as a sole proprietor or an independent contractor who reports income from self-employment. So meron siyang business. This individual does not earn income from an employer-employee relationship. So wala siyang sweldo. Meron siya business income, right? Next, a professional is defined as a person formally certified by a professional body belonging to a specific profession. So kung may certification, ibig sabihin merong mga licensure exam. Kagaya nga ng engineer, architect, accountant, no? Nurse, doctors, lawyers, or no, merong or dito. Or it can also refer to a person who engages in some art or sport for money as a means of livelihood rather than as a hobby. For example, yung sinabi natin kanina, photographers and makeup artists. 'Di ba? Malaki ang kinikita ng mga yan every weekend pag may wedding. No? So, income derived from self-employment is considered income derived from the conduct of trade or business. So, it is classified as regular or ordinary income. Alright? Um, let's talk about the fact that self-employed and or professionals may use the 8% preferential tax rate. Ano ba yon? 'Di ba kanina sa table na pinakita natin kanina, ang tax rate can run from 0 to 35%. But take note that is based on taxable income. Whereas this one, no, yung 8% preferential tax rate under the train law, the regular income of self-employed and or professionals, it can be subjected to an 8% rate on gross sales receipts other than operating income in excess of 250,000 in lieu of the graduated income tax rate and business tax under section 116 of the tax code. Ibig sabihin, if the SEP avails of the 8% preferential tax rate, this is already in lieu of the regular graduated rates and at the same time, hindi na rin siya magbabayad ng percentage tax na sales tax under the tax code. So, dalawa ang pinalitan. But again, the 8% is based on gross income versus yung SEP or yung regular tax rather na based sa taxable income. Okay? So what does this mean? Ah, dahil mababa yung rate, no, but mataas ang tax base rather, merong mga requisites before an individual can avail of the 8% preferential tax rate. Counter nito is merong mga individuals na hindi pwedeng mag-avail ng 8% preferential tax rate. So what are these? O who are these? Number one, the gross receipts or sales of the individual and other non-operating income does not exceed the VAT threshold of 3 million pesos. So once mag-exceed ng 3 million pesos yung benta nitong individual, hindi na siya qualified to avail of the 8% preferential tax rate. Automatic ang gagamitin na niya is the graduated tax table of 0 to 35%. Okay? Next, the SEP or the self-employed and professional shall be non-VAT registered. No? Kasi nga, sa batas natin, if you already reach 3 million, dapat mag-register ka na as VAT. Okay? Next, the gross sales receipts were not derived from VAT exempt sales and transactions. Next, the SEP is not subject to percentage tax other than what is in 116 of the tax code. So, hindi siya yung mga usual na banks or yung mga amusement tax, etc. Okay? And last, dapat malinaw that the SEP signifies his/her intention to elect the 8% income tax. Okay? What does self-employed, or how are we going to tax purely self-employed and professional individual taxpayers? Okay? So sabi natin, if the annual gross sales does not exceed 3 million pesos, so qualified siya para mag-avail ng 8% preferential tax rate. But this is actually optional on the part of the taxpayer. So let's say an individual who is earning, let's say 2 million pesos, pwede siyang, may option siya na gagamitin niya yung graduated rates under Section 24 of 0 to 35%, or gagamitin niya itong 8% rate, no? But if this individual na self-employed and or professional, ang kanyang gross sales or receipts already exceed 3 million, no choice. Hindi siya pwedeng gumamit ng 8% rate kung hindi dapat gagamitin na niya yung graduated table of 0 to 35%. Okay? Take note also guys that the election of the 8% preferential tax rate is irrevocable during the year. No? So, ibig sabihin, for the year 2024, kailan niya pipiliin yung choice niya, kung 8% ba or graduated rates? During the filing of the first quarter income tax return. So, magpo-file siya ng first quarter income tax return, second quarter, third quarter, and then you have the annual income tax return. Can the taxpayer change the option kung let's say first quarter pinili niya 8%? Tapos second quarter naisip niya, ay mag-graduated na lang ako. Pwede ba yon? The answer is no. Dapat kung ano ang choice na pinili niya in the first quarter income tax return, yan ay choice na niya during the entire taxable year hanggang sa annual income tax return. Kung gusto niya magpalit, next year na. Sa next year na income tax return na. Alright? Okay, so now let's illustrate the computation of taxes for self-employed and professionals for SEPs. So let's go to illustration 6 found on page 76. Okay? So, case A, assuming a purely SEP whose gross sales and other non-operating income does not exceed the 3 million peso VAT threshold. So, number one, determine the income tax due in 2024, assuming the gross sales receipt and other non-operating income was 240,000. So, whether this self-employed and professional uses the graduated rate or the 8% preferential rate, the tax will be zero, di ba? Kasi remember, ang kinita lang niya is 240,000. If you use the graduated rates, doon siya sa unang bracket which is up to 250,000, edi zero ang kanyang tax. Pag ginamit mo naman ang 8%, di ba it's 8% on the excess above 250,000. O, edi zero pa din, right? Next, we go to number 2. Using the data below, determine the income tax due. So in number 2, gross sales is 2.8 million, cost of sales is 1.5 million, operating expense is 750,000, leaving the taxpayer with a net income of 550,000 pesos. So, dalawang option, di ba? Either the individual can use the graduated rates or pwede siyang mag 8% preferential tax rate. As discussed earlier, ang difference, ang graduated rate based sa taxable income. So kung gagamitin natin ang graduated rate, we will use the net income of 550,000 pesos. E di doon na siya sa bracket na 400,000 pesos. On the first 400,000, using the brackets, it's 22,500. Pero yung in excess of 400,000, multiplied pa yan by 20%. So that will amount to 30,000 pesos. So, 30,000 plus 22,500, ang tax due, income tax due, kay taxpayer ay 52,500. But take note, dahil siya ay nag-graduated rates, meron pa siya actually babayarang percentage tax na 3% based on gross sales. But this is actually a topic that will be discussed further next semester sa transfer tax. But just to show the difference, no, ang 3% percentage tax is based on gross sales. So 2.8 million times 3%, it's 84,000. So 84,000 na percentage tax plus yung income tax due na 52,500, ang total taxes niya, both income and business tax, will be 136,500. This is if the SEP uses graduated rates. Okay? Number 3, assume that the SEP opted to avail of the 8% preferential tax rate. Qualified naman siya kasi gross sales niya 2.8 million pa lang. So hindi pa niya na-reach yung 3 million threshold. But again, if na-reach ang 3 million peso threshold, wala na. No choice. Graduated rates lang talaga siya. So what is the tax due if the SEP availed to use, opted to avail of the 8% rate? The answer is 2.8 million less 250,000. Kasi di ba yung 8% only applicable on the excess beyond 250. So 2.8 million less 250,000 times 8% equals 204,000. Take note, this 204,000 is in lieu of both the income tax and the percentage tax. So, kung titignan natin yung nakuha nating sagot, 'di ba, in number 2 and number 3, in number 2 ang total taxes niya is 136,000. Kung nag 8% rate siya, ang total taxes niya is 204,000. So in this situation, it is going to be beneficial to the taxpayer kung ang gagamitin niya ay yung graduated rates. However, remember, the choice of whether to use graduated rates or 8% is irrevocable for the year. And you make this choice upon filing the first quarter income tax return. Okay? So, yung case B and case C, it just shows na dito sa page 77, it just shows na walang choice ang taxpayer dahil na-exceed na niya ang VAT threshold at siya, or sa case C naman siya ay VAT registered. So, siya ay no choice kung hindi gumamit lang ng graduated rates. Hindi available ang option to use the 8% preferential tax rate. Right? Okay, next, we now go to mixed income earner. So again, we have the three kinds of taxpayer, those earning purely compensation income, meaning lahat ng income niya coming from an employer-employee relationship. Second is yung self-employed and or professional, meaning lahat ng kinikita niya is from a business or the exercise of a profession. And third ay yung mixed income earner. An individual taxpayer is considered a mixed income earner if he or she is deriving income from both employer-employee relationship at self-employment and or exercise of a profession. Dapat at least may isa siyang employment, may isa rin siyang business and or profession. Okay? How different is the taxability of mixed income earners from SEPs? Okay? Una-una, if you look at the flow charts on page 80 and 81, na what you do is a mixed income earner, you have to divide the business income and the compensation income of the taxpayer. The compensation income, mas madali, it will always be subject to graduated rates kahit anong mangyari. Okay? Again, always graduated rates ang compensation income ng mixed income earner. Ngayon, about the business income, 'di ba? The mixed income earner has the option whether to use the graduated rates or the 8% preferential tax rate then. But this time, yung 8% preferential tax rate niya applied as is without the benefit of deducting the 250,000 pesos. Kung gamitin niya yung 8% preferential tax rate. Okay? So, let's go to illustration 7 on page 81. Let's look at how the income tax of mixed income earners are computed. So, dito, ang given, okay, assume the following data for 2024 during the taxable year. Okay? So I just typed in the figures for illustration 7 para mas nakikita natin. So compensation income is 900,000, gross sales is 2.8 million, cost of sales is 1.5 million pesos, operating expenses is 750,000. So the total taxable net income of the taxpayer of the mixed income earner in illustration 7 is 1.45 million pesos. So how much is the correct income tax due? So sabi natin, for the uh, compensation income of 900,000, wala siyang choice, kundi gamitin ang graduated rate. So ibig sabihin, papasok siya dun sa bracket na 800,000 pesos or more. So ibig sabihin, dito sa uh, 800,000 niya, ang mangyayaring figure is 102,500. Pero dun sa excess, no, which is 1.45 million less 800,000 times 25%, that will be 162,500. So dito sa number 1, ginawa niya, the entire income is subject to the graduated rate. Yun yung kanyang in-exercise na option. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, um, 1.45, which is the total net taxable income, less the 800,000 bracket times 25%, 162,500, plus the 102,500 on the first 800,000, the tax due on the 2024 income is 265,000. But what if the taxpayer opted to use the 8% on the business income and or profession income? So sabi natin, if yun ang option na in-exercise ni mixed income earner, yung compensation income, no choice. Gagamitin pa rin natin yung graduated rates. So on the 900,000 pesos, 'di ba? Papasok pa rin siya doon sa income na pumasok sa 800,000 bracket. So 102,500 pa rin yung basic tax niya doon. And then the excess, no? In excess, which is 100,000 times 25%, ang kaniyang tax will be 25,000. So, ibig sabihin, dito sa compensation income niyang 900,000, ang tax payable ay 127,500. Pero compensation income pa lang yon, wala pa as SEP, no? So, dun sa business income, kung ang option niya is gamitin yung 8%, it's going to be based on gross. So, 2.8 million times 8% equals 224,000. Meaning, ang total tax dun niya is 127,500 on compensation income plus 224,000 on business income. Tax due is equal to 351,000 pesos. Okay? So that's it, guys. Okay? Now we move on to passive income subject to final withholding tax. Again, just to emphasize, there is a specific list of income or types of income that are considered passive incomes na merong specific final tax rates na applicable sa kanila. So what are the passive incomes? Passive incomes subject to final withholding taxes are passive income from sources within the Philippines enumerated under the tax code. Okay? The five kinds of passive incomes are interest, dividends, royalties, prices, and other winnings. So if you look at table 2-8 on page 83 onwards, makikita nyo yung mga types ng passive income and the rates applicable to them depending on whether the taxpayer is a citizen and resident, or second, siya ay non-resident alien engaged in trade or business, or siya ay non-resident alien not engaged in trade or business. Okay? When we say that passive income is subject to final withholding taxes, take note, again, hindi sila subject to basic tax or graduated tax. At dahil final tax na yan, okay, take note guys that passive income already subjected to final tax will not be included in the computation of income tax na subject, yung regular income subject to the regular income tax. Okay? Under the final withholding tax system, the payee will already receive the income net of the applicable tax. So this means that the amount of tax withheld by the withholding agent is constituted as the full and final payment already of the income tax due from the payee of the said income. Okay? So example, isa lang. On page 86, na how much is the final withholding tax due on her interest income from her bank deposit? So si Ana, meron siyang 10,000 pesos in her bank deposit in Maharlika Bank, 'di ba? So ang final withholding tax niya is 8,000, ang final withholding tax niya is interest income of 10,000 multiplied by 20%. Ibig sabihin, ang kanyang final withholding tax ay 2,000 pesos. Question 2, how much interest income should be credited to Ana's bank deposit? The answer is 8,000 pesos only na lang. Kasi yung 10,000 na interest income less final withholding tax of 2,000, the net amount to be deposited in Ana's account as interest income, net of final withholding taxes is just 8,000 pesos. Okay? Question 3. Should the 10,000 peso interest income earned by Ana be shown in her income tax return? So, dapat pa bang isama ni Ana yung 10,000 pesos na interest income na kinita niya sa kanyang deposit? The answer is no. Under the final withholding tax system, the payee received the income net of the applicable tax already. The FWT already constitutes full and final payment of the income tax due. Okay? So therefore, only tax or only income subject to basic income tax are required to be presented in the income tax return. Okay? What are deposit substitutes? So deposit substitutes is an alternative form of obtaining funds from the public other than deposits. Example nito would be treasury bonds and T-bills issued by the government. Okay? Yung interest income from long-term deposit, okay, generally, they are exempt from tax. But they should have a maturity period of not less than 5 years in the form of which shall be prescribed by the Bangko Sentral. So yan ay exempt from income taxes. Requisites for conditions for exemptions are found on page 89. So, di ba yung period ng long-term deposit is not less than 5 years? What happens if nag-pre-terminate or hindi tinapos yung 5 years? So, hindi siya naging long-term deposit. What happens? Interest income from long-term deposit or investment that is pre-terminated shall be subjected to the following tax rates. Kasi 'di ba kung na-meet niya yung 5 years, exempt sana siya from income tax. Pero dahil hindi niya na-meet, then it will be subject to final withholding taxes. If it was held for less than 3 years, the tax rate is 20%. If it was held for 3 to 4 years, then 12%. Kung 4 to 5 years, then 5%. Alright? So now we move on to capital gains tax. Okay, so now we go to capital gains tax. But before we go to that portion, we have to differentiate ordinary assets and capital assets. At the outset, I will have to tell you guys that not because they are capital assets, they are automatically subject to capital gains tax. Gaya ng sabi natin kanina, there are only two kinds of properties that are subject to, or sale of two properties that are subject to capital gains tax. The first is shares of stock that are not traded in the stock exchange, and the second one is real properties. At the same time, just because they are subject to what we call the capital gains tax doesn't necessarily mean automatically capital asset na yan. It's possible, like for example, lupa. A parcel of land can be either an ordinary asset or a capital asset. So please interpret them separately, and it really depends on the specific transaction kung ano ang magiging classification niya, kung ordinary or capital asset siya, and kung anong klasing tax siya masasubject. Okay? So, to start, we have to differentiate what is an ordinary asset versus capital asset. So, we look at Section 39 of the tax code. So, this one, no, actually baliktad, if you look at the exact provision of Section 39, this one baliktad yung pagkaka-define niya, no? So, ano daw ang capital asset excluding. So basically, what happened is that dinefine or enumerate ng tax code yung ordinary assets. So number one, stock in trade of the taxpayer or other property of a kind which would be included in the inventory of the taxpayer. So this would mean that it depends on the nature of the business. Kung ano yung kasama sa inventory niya, those are ordinary assets. So like for example, a hardware store, ang inventory niya would be consisting of pintura, kahoy, hollow block, semento, right? And let's say it's a subdivision developer. So let's say nag-develop siya ng mga subdivision, ano ang kanyang inventory? Ang inventory niya ay consisting of yung mga lupa, 'di ba? If you have seen a subdivision plan or map, 'di ba? Meron talaga siyang mga square-square na mga lupa. At 'yun ang kanyang inventory. That's why we said it doesn't mean na automatic pag lupa, capital asset 'yon. It can be an ordinary asset if it forms part of the inventory of the business. Okay? But kung hindi siya part ng inventory at talagang stand-alone na lupa or isa or dalawa lang at talagang hindi ginagamit, it can be classified as a capital asset. Second, property used in trade or business subject to depreciation. That is an ordinary asset. So let's say a business has several vehicles na ginagamit ng mga employees. those vehicles, kahit na hindi naman yun yung specific trade or hindi naman vehicle dealer, hindi car dealer yung business, but pero meron siyang fleet of vehicles or meron siyang one or two cars na ginagamit ng employees in the business, those cars are actually ordinary asset, hindi yan capital asset. Number three, real property held by the taxpayer primarily for sale to customers in the ordinary course of trade or business. So kahit real property pa yan, but it is held by the taxpayer for sale to customers in the ordinary course of trade or business, kagaya nga kanina. Real property ang mga subdivision lots or let's say in the case of a condominium developer, real property yung condominium units. But it is being held by the developers in the ordinary course of business para ibenta sa mga customer niya. So therefore, yung mga lots, no, subdivision lots and condominium units in that sense are not capital assets but are ordinary assets. Real property used in trade or business of the taxpayer. That is number four. So kahit real property pa yan, as long as it is being used by the taxpayer in the trade or business, then that is a an ordinary asset, hindi siya capital asset. Example would be like yung kanina hardware store. So may physical na tindahan, may building yun, di ba? And then the land on which it is situated. So kahit na mag-isa lang yung lot na yan, mag-isa lang yung building structure kung nasaan ang tindahan, but it is being used by the taxpayer in the conduct of its business, then the building and the land used by the hardware is actually an ordinary asset. Hindi yan capital asset. So anything that does not fall under these four categories, they are to be classified as capital asset. Alright? So what is the taxation of ordinary assets? Or kung halimbawa, nagbenta tayo ng ordinary asset, how is it taxed? Gain on sale of ordinary assets are commonly known as ordinary or regular income. So kasama yan sa regular income subject to the basic income tax or graduated rates. Okay? So basta ordinary asset, subject yan sa regular income tax rates. Kahit lupa pa yan, but if let's say it's part of the inventory or is being used by the taxpayer, we will not apply capital gains tax. We will only apply basic regular income tax. Okay? So yung capital gains tax na sinasabi natin kanina, again, it is subject to, there are only two kinds of properties subject to the regular capital gains tax. Ang una ay ang capital gains on sales of shares of stock of a closely held domestic corporation. Ano ang capital gains tax niya? Then it is 15%. So, kung magkano ang selling price, less cost, no? Less cost, ha? Don't forget. Yun yung magiging capital gains nung shares of stock not traded in the stock exchange. This capital gains will be multiplied by 15%. 15% ang capital gains on sale of shares of stock not traded in the stock exchange. And the resulting product, capital gains times rate of 15% equals the capital gains tax. Okay? Next, for capital gains on sale of real properties, okay, take note, we are still on individual taxpayers. For individual taxpayers, the capital gains tax on real properties classified as capital asset is 6% based on the selling price. Kanina sa shares of stock, you have to take note of the cost kasi yung tax is only applicable on the gains. But for sale of real properties, land, building, machinery na fixed to the ground, ang rate niya ay 6% based on selling price. It doesn't matter magkano yung historical cost ng acquisition ng real properties because the 6% is based on the selling price only. So, Ang next question natin dito, ano ang magiging basis ng 6%? Under the tax code, it is the fair market value or selling price, whichever is higher. And when we say fair market value, it shall either be the zonal value provided by the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue and the assessed value as provided by the local assessors. So, ang zonal value, makikita natin to sa BIR website. This is determined by the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Ang assessed value, makikita natin to sa tax declaration na makukuha natin sa city or provincial assessor. The higher between the two, that is considered the fair market value. Now, you have to consider this, no? The higher between the two, you have to compare it with the selling price. And the highest among the three, yun yung imumultiply mo by 6%, yun ang magiging capital gains tax on the sale of real properties. Alright? So next, let's do the examples on illustration 10 on page 96 for the sale of shares of stock. So, number 1, George sold 2,000 shares of a domestic corporation in the local stock exchange at 110 pesos per share. The shares were purchased 3 years ago for 100 pesos per share. What's the key information here? Binenta niya ito sa local stock exchange. So is there capital gains tax applicable on the transaction? The answer is zero, because the capital gains tax on sale of shares of stock is only applicable for shares or stock not traded in the stock exchange. Okay? Next, number 2, George sold 2,000 shares of stock of a domestic corporation directly to a buyer, si Clifford, at 180 per share. The shares were acquired 6 months ago at 105 pesos per share. So 2,000 shares of stock, nabili ng 105 per share, nabenta at 180. So the selling price, 2,000 shares times 180 equals 360,000 pesos. Magkano yung puhunan or cost ni George? 2,000 shares times 105 pesos equals 210,000 pesos. So 360 minus 210, the capital gains of George is 150,000 pesos. Multiply this with the capital gains tax rate of 15%. Therefore, the capital gains tax of George is 22,500. Okay? So assuming na si George, it's still the same. Number 3, George sold 2,000 shares of stock directly to a buyer at 100 pesos per share. The shares were acquired 2 years ago at 105 per share. So palugi si George kasi 105 niya binili, 100 lang niya binenta. How much is the capital gains tax? The answer is zero. Remember, capital gains tax on sale of shares of stock is only applied if there is capital gains. Kung lugi ka, walang CGT on the sale of shares. Okay? Let's go now to the illustrations on capital gains tax on sale of real property. So this is illustration 11 on page 97. Okay. Case A. Pedro sold a parcel of land used in his trading business. Selling price was 3 million pesos and the property was acquired 5 years ago, okay, at 1.5 million pesos. Okay? Key information in number 1, yung parcel of land na binenta ni Pedro is being used in his trading business. Okay? Number 2, Pedro sold a residential lot for 5 million pesos. The fair market value of the property was 6 million pesos and the property was acquired 3 years ago at 4 million pesos. Okay? Question number 1. How much is the total capital gains tax for the aforementioned say real estate transactions? For number one, okay, remember this is an ordinary asset. Therefore, it is not subject to capital gains tax. Bakit siya ordinary? Pedro is using it in his trading business. The gain, no, 3 million minus 1.5 million will be included in the determination of gross income subject to basic income tax. How about the second one? No, yung residential lot niya, binenta niya. Ang question is, what is the fair market value that we will consider? Okay? So, take note, between 5 million pesos na selling price and fair market value of 6 million, kukunin natin yung mas mataas, which is 6 million. Again, it doesn't matter what the historical cost is because the CGT of 6% on sale of real property is applied on the higher between selling price and fair market value. So, 6 million times 6%, 360,000 ang babayaran na capital gains tax. Okay? Question. Assuming that the residential lot in transaction 2 was sold at 3 million pesos. So palugi. Kasi 4 million niya binili, binenta lang niya ng 3 million. How much will be the capital gains tax? It will still be 360,000. 6 million times 6%. Bakit? Again, the historical cost is not considered. Doesn't matter kahit palugi niya yung ibenta. The capital gains tax on sale of real property is based on the selling price or fair market value, whichever is higher. Okay? How about the sale of principal residence? Okay? When we say sale of principal residence, the principal residence pertains to the family home of the individual taxpayer. Take note, it does not mean the house only, but it also includes the land on which the house is situated. Under the tax code, if the principal residence is sold, okay, it may be exempt from capital gains tax. It's possible that the principal residence, sale of principal residence will be exempt from capital gains tax. What are the requisites for exemption? Remember guys, exemptions, exceptions, exclusions, deductions are construed strictly against the taxpayer. So dapat lahat ng requisites for tax exemption must be met, otherwise matataksan yung sale of principal residence. First requisite, the proceeds of the sale of the principal residence is fully utilized in acquiring or constructing a new principal residence. So yung pinagbentahan mo nung dati mong bahay, gagamitin mo pambili or pang-construct ng bagong bahay. Second, the historical cost or adjusted basis of the real property sold or disposed shall be carried over to the new principal residence built or acquired. Idadagdag yung historical cost or adjusted basis ng real property doon sa bago mong bahay. Third, the BIR should have been duly notified within 30 days from the date of sale of the disposition through a prescribed return. And last, the tax exemption can only be availed of once every 10 years. So, hindi pwedeng every year, pag nagpapalit ka ng bahay, every year exempt. You can only, pwede ka magpalit ng bahay every year. Pero yung exemption is only once every 10 years. Okay? How do you know that it is your principal residence? Usually, it is certified by the barangay captain na ito talaga yung principal residence or family home nitong taxpayer. Alright? So, next, dito na tayo sa creditable withholding taxes. We have already discussed taxable income subject to basic taxes earlier. So dito na tayo sa creditable withholding taxes. Kanina we discussed final tax, no? Again, the list of those subject to final withholding taxes is definite. Kung wala sa list, huwag mo isa-subject sa final withholding tax. And again, the final withholding tax is considered as the full payment of the tax. Kaya nga, yung income items that were subjected to final taxes, hindi na yan sinasama sa gross income, hindi na yan sinasama sa income tax return kasi bayad na. What is this creditable withholding tax? This one, meron ding listahan ng income items that are subject to creditable withholding taxes. Okay? Creditable withholding taxes is only a method of collecting income tax in advance from the recipient of the income to the payer thereof, which the law constitutes as the withholding agent. So yung tax withheld on certain payments are intended to equal or at least approximate the tax due of the payee on the said income computed using the graduated rates. So, siguro ang isa sa mga pinaka-common na example ng creditable withholding tax is the tax withheld by an employer from the compensation of the employee. So, ang mga employees, so let's say sumisweldo sila every 15th and 30th of the month. Let's say the gross pay of the employee is 40,000 pesos. Meaning, every 15th and 30th, meron siyang makukuha dapat na gross na tig 20,000. Pero buo bang makukuha ng taxpayer yung 20,000 niya? The answer is no. Unang-una maraming statutory deductions such as SSS or GSIS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, na yan yung mga ide-deduct. And then, dededakan din niya ng withholding taxes on compensation. Itong withholding taxes on compensation, the employer is deemed as the withholding agent. Kukunin niya yan sa employee, ire-remit niya sa BIR. So, kung ano man ang matitira doon sa net pay ni employee, that's exactly it. It's already the net pay. Net of deductions and withholding taxes. Okay? Other kinds of withholding taxes are shown in this chart in page 104, on page 104. So like for example, for professional fees, meron diyang 5 and 10%, 10 and 15%. Siguro ang isa sa mga pinaka-common na creditable withholding taxes ay ang rental, which is 5%. Okay? Actually, we can show, no, the illustration of how taxes on rentals are withheld, and how this interplays with the payable of the lessor for income taxes due, no, in illustration 13 on page 105. Okay? So, let's do this, no? Pepito Manalo leased a commercial property to Elsa Enterprises, sole proprietorship, for a monthly rent of 50,000 pesos. Elsa Enterprises, the rent for current month as stipulated in the lease contract. So, question number 1, how much is the rent expense of Elsa Enterprises for the month? E di syempre, ang rent expense niya, yung buong 50,000 pesos. Okay? Pero, how much should be received by Pepito Manalo for the month? Makukuha ba niya yung buong 50,000 pesos? The answer is no. Ang makukuha lang ni Pepito ay 47,500 minus yung 5% na creditable withholding tax, which is 50,000 times 5%. So, 2,500 yon. Ima-minus yon ni Elsa dun sa ibabayad niya kay Pepito. So, Pepito will only get 47,500. Take note, Elsa Enterprises should remit the 2,500 to the BIR. Okay? It is a creditable withholding tax because at the end of the year, si Pepito, he will report income of 50,000 times 12. Buo niya ire-report yon. So kung kukumputan natin ng income tax si Pepito, babayaran ba niya yung buong income tax niya na yon? No. Kasi gagamitin niya yung 2,500 per month na dineduct ni Elsa. So, 2,500 times 12, 'di ba? Teka lang, parang kailangan natin ng calculator dahil tayo ay accountant. So, 2,500 times 12, 30,000 yung total na withhold ni Elsa kay Pepito. So kung ano man ang lumabas na income tax due ni Pepito at the end of the year, pwede niyang i-deduct yung 30,000 na na-withhold na ni Elsa every month. Alright? So kaya din siya way of an advance tax collection. Because, so let's say the year is 2024, 'di ba? Si Elsa, every month, nagwi-withhold siya kay Pepito and every quarter, nagre-remit siya kay BIR. So, ibig sabihin, during the 2024, natatanggap na ni BIR yung portion nung taxes na winidhold, yung taxes ni Pepito kasi winidhold na siya ni Elsa. Because if let's say the BIR just waits for Pepito to pay his taxes, kailan ba yun due? Next year pa, 2025 pa. So by way of the creditable withholding tax system, the BIR is able to collect taxes in advance. Alright? So next, okay. Let's do illustration 10 pa rin. Case C on page 107. So look, a resident taxpayer provided the following information in 2024. Meron siyang compensation income, meron siyang gross business income Philippines, meron siyang gross business income in Canada, meron siyang business expenses Philippines and Canada, meron siyang income taxes withheld by his employer, okay? Income tax withheld by certain payers on business income, meron din siya. At nagbayad na rin siya kay BIR for the first 3 quarters of the year. Remember, I mentioned earlier, ang income tax returns, binabayaran first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and then you have the annual tax returns. So itong problem na ito, combination na ito ng lahat ng principles na naaral natin kanina. What are the key information that we can get from this problem? Unang-una siya ay resident citizen. And we know that a resident citizen is taxable on all income from within and without. So ibig sabihin, taxable siya on income from both Philippines and Canada. Kung had this taxpayer been any other kind of taxpayer like alien siya or non-resident citizen, i-exclude natin yung Canada side. Kasi 'di ba, only taxable on income within. But since the problem says resident citizen siya, ay kasama both Philippines and Canada. Another thing, this person is a mixed income earner. Bakit? Kasi meron siyang both compensation income and meron siyang gross business income. Right? So, ibig sabihin, this person can actually use the graduated rates, which I assume dito, no? Kasi ang kanyang gross business income is from Philippines is 2 million, ang gross business income niya sa Canada ay 3 million. Ibig sabihin, no choice siya. Graduated rates talaga ang gagamitin niya kasi nag-exceed na ng 3 million peso threshold. Hindi siya qualified gumamit ng 8% tax rate. Okay? So let's look at the computation. Ano ang mga kasama sa gross income niya? Lahat to graduated rates kaya we don't have to divide or hindi na natin kailangan ihiwala yung compensation and business income. Okay? So we include the compensation income of 1 million. We include the gross business income from Philippines and Canada of 2 and 3 million. We deduct the business expenses from Philippines and Canada of 1.4 and 2.05 million. So the taxable income is 2.55 million pesos. What is the tax due? Titingin tayo sa tax table, yung orange one na ginamit natin kanina. On the first 2 million pesos, it's going to be 402,500 pesos. And on the excess over 2 million pesos, it's going to be 30%. No? So, ibig sabihin, 550,000 times 30% equals 165. Yung 402.5 plus 165. Ang total niyan is 567,500. Yan na ba ang tax due na babayaran ni taxpayer sa BIR? Not yet. Ibabawas pa natin yung mga creditable withholding taxes niya tsaka yung tax na binayaran niya for the first 3 quarters. So 567,500 less 150,000 na tax withheld by the employer less 100,000 withheld by certain payers and less 125,000 um which was paid for the first 3 quarters. So, ibig sabihin, ang income tax payable niya ay 192,500. Okay? Okay. So next, we now go to quarterly tax returns. Okay. Guys, for individual taxpayers are always using the calendar year. Hindi sila pwedeng gumamit ng fiscal year. It's always calendar. So, ang first quarter ends March 30. Second quarter March 31 rather. And then second quarter ends June 30. And then third quarter ends September 30. And of course, the year ends on December 31. Kailan ang due dates ng quarterly tax returns? For first quarter, it is due on May 15. For second quarter, it is due on August 15. For third quarter, it is due on November 15. And for the annual return, it will be due on April 15 of the following year. Okay? So please look at the illustrations on how it is computed. Okay? So as you can see, lalo na dito sa page 109, yung income tax due, yung solution 1 to 4, makikita nyo, as we have illustrated kanina, that the payments for the previous tax return, so like sa second quarter column, yung binayad niya ng first quarter, ibabawas doon sa tax due ng second quarter. Yung third quarter, ibabawas yung binayad ng quarter 1 and quarter 2, and same, kagaya nga sa problem kanina, for the yearly or for the annual tax return, ibabawas yung binayad ng quarters 1, 2, and 3. Right? Yung income tax due on married individuals, I will leave that to you. Please take note lang na separate ang computation for uh, income taxes ng married taxpayers. Okay? Next, malapit na tayo matapos, guys. For minimum wage earners, what is the rule? Ang statutory minimum wage by law is exempt from income taxation. Ang tanong, sino ang nag-fix ng minimum wages? The rate is fixed by the Regional Tripartite Wage and Productivity Board as defined by the Bureau of Labor and Employment Statistics of the DOLE. Okay? So, as you can see, di ba, regional tripartite. That's why ang mga statutory minimum wage magkakaiba per region. Iba ang statutory minimum wage sa NCR, iba sa Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, and so on and so forth. Okay? So, kung ano ang prescribed na minimum wage ng Regional Tripartite Wage and Productivity Board, yun ang SMW or Statutory Minimum Wage for the region. Kung ano man yan, that is exempt from income taxes. Other items that are also exempt from income taxes are holiday pay ng minimum wage earner, overtime pay, night shift differential, and hazard pay. Okay? What happens if this minimum wage earner is earning additional business income? Okay? Ano mangyayari? Yung minimum wage niya, exempt pa rin from income taxes. But the business income earned by the minimum wage earner is subject to taxes. Okay? So, ang exempt lang yung minimum wage lang niya. Pero yung business income, matataksan yon. Alright? How about senior citizens and persons with disabilities? Take note, ang senior citizens and PWDs are still subject to the regular income taxes. Ang na-exempt lang sila would be the VAT on the sales. Okay? You can look at the list, no, of the tax liabilities of senior citizens and PWDs as well as solo parents on page 114 and 115. Take note, ito ay subject pa rin sila ha, subject pa rin ang senior citizens and PWDs. Whereas yung exemption, kagaya ng sabi ko kanina, sa VAT ay nasa page 116. So, yun lang ang exempt sa VAT. Okay? Tapos yung meron ding 20% discount, no? Pero sa VAT lang talaga exempt. Okay? For taxation of alien individuals employed by POGOs or Philippine Offshore Gaming Operations, or OGLs, yung online offshore gaming licensee, okay? They are taxed regardless of residency and term and class of working permit or visa. So, alien individuals, kasi mga ano to mga in-employ ng POGO or OOGLs. Alien individuals, regardless of residency, who are employed and assigned in the Philippines, dito nag-work, regardless of term and class of working or employment and permit or visa by an OGL or its service provider, is taxed in the Philippines. Okay? So ano ang kanyang tax? How is this tax? 25% final withholding tax, no? Or 12,500 whichever is higher. Kung meron pa siyang income from all other sources within the Philippines, edi depende na kung ano ang applicable taxes based on the kind of income earned. Okay? How about the filing of income tax return and the preparation of income tax return? Okay? Under the EOPT, we now have the file and pay anywhere rule. So, I guess kanina na take up natin ano yung um, time or ano yung timing ng filing ng quarterly tax returns. Ngayon naman, where to file the tax returns and where to pay the tax returns. So, under the ease of paying taxes, it can now be done with the authorized agent banks. You can also pay with the revenue collection officer or doon sa BIR mismo or with authorized tax software providers. Wala na ngayong wrong venue. So let's say if you're in Baler or you're a registered taxpayer in Baler, okay, but you are traveling, no? Dumating yung April 15, you are traveling and you are in Manila, you can actually pay your taxes in Manila. There is no more concept of wrong venue. Other methods also of filing the return, no? Ito naman, yung kanina venue, ito naman mode. You can file it electronically or manually. When we say manually, yun yung venue ng pag-file kanina. Yung sabi natin, punta ka sa authorized agent bank or sa BIR mismo. When we say electronically, the filing of the tax return and the payment of tax is done through electronic means. So, pwedeng nag-file si taxpayer through the BIR's electronic platforms, which is the EFPS or the EBIR forms. Yung EBIR forms, dina-download yon para siyang program. Tapos, nandun lahat ng tax returns, fini-fill up mo yung information. Okay? Pwede rin sa mga e-payment channels of authorized agent bank. So, like Union Bank, you can pay through the app, no? Online, GCash is actually also an acceptable electronic means of paying your taxes, no? Online banking platforms and authorized tax software providers. Okay? Um, Please take note of the BIR forms that you need when you are filing your tax returns. So, nasa page 122 yung forms na gagamitin depending on the kind of individual taxpayers. Okay? Look, dito sa page 123, merong individuals required to file ITR. But, meron ding individual taxpayers not required to file ITR. So there are certain individuals not required to file ITR. Number one, this is what we call substituted filing under Section 51A of the tax code. Those who are earning purely compensation income, whose taxable income has been correctly withheld by the employer, so tama yung pagkaka-withhold ng employer, and has only one employer for the entire taxable year, pwede siyang qualified under substituted filing. Ibig sabihin, yung certificate of tax withheld na binibigay ng employer na stamped receipt ng BIR, that will stand in as the tax return of the employee. Hindi na niya kailangan mag-file ng tax return. Okay? Next, an individual earning purely compensation, earning purely compensation income whose taxable income does not exceed 250,000 pesos. Because as we have learned earlier, pag 250,000, the applicable tax is zero. Di ba? Third, an individual whose sole income has been subjected to final withholding tax kasi nga the final withholding tax already stands in as the full payment. So no need to file an income tax return. Number four, a minimum wage earner because exempt sila. And number five, an individual citizen working as an OFW or OCW. So if you want to look at the definition of the OCW, you can find it in Republic Act 11641. Okay? So, and that's it. So thank you guys for listening to this learn along for chapter 2 of income taxation. And the next videos will cover the following chapters. Thank you everyone.